This is a special edition of Late Night Health. I'm Mark Alyn. We're going to talk, believe it or not, about vaginas and penises on this show. We're going to be speaking with Madeline Ruiz, and Madeline has written a book called I Married a Dick Doctor Who Fixes Women Too. This is a very funny book, but it has lots of information on penile health, on vaginal health, and we're going to a small town in Texas, and we have Madeline on our screen right now. Madeline, thanks for joining me today here on Late Night Health.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Madeline, you've been married to Henry Ruiz, Dr. Henry Ruiz, who is a double board certified urologist for about 20 years now. And you told me that because of that, and living in a small town, people come up to you in supermarkets and at Starbucks and are kind of, well, they discuss very personal things with you.
They sure do. They come at me from any venue you can imagine. Once they see me, it's a small town, they know who I'm married to. And I think after seeing me a few times, they work up the nerve to come on over and ask a urological question, usually about their husband and other times about themselves and sometimes their children.
Does it seem to you that many men over a certain age have some kind of issue with their penis?
Every man has issues with their penis at some point. But nobody will talk about it. That's why the subject seems so taboo, because, you know, I write a chapter in my book called Penis Pressures in Society. And there's so much pressure on a man to perform, they don't dare bring up the fact that it might not be working properly all the time.
It is, from a psychological standpoint, if a guy can't pleasure his partner, shall we say, or get it up, it's got to have psychological effects on the guy too.
You know, it ruins relationships for both the man and the woman. Sometimes the man will often isolate himself because he just doesn't know what's going on. And most of the time, usually after the age of 40, it seems to be some underlying physical condition. And so they don't want to talk about it because what are you going to do? Make an appointment and the receptionist says, how can I help you? What's your problem? Oh, yes, I need to see a doctor because I can't get it up. They're not going to make that call. It's just too much pressure. And so a lot of the times the wives will come and find me and they'll secretly tell me about their husband's erectile dysfunction. And everybody seems to be surprised that their urological issue can be fixed. That's my message.
You were married before. You had a loving relationship, and then your husband got sick.
Yeah.
And his performance in bed kind of withered, so to speak. And he finally, I guess he felt so bad for you, he asked you to leave.
He did. It was devastating. Pushed me away, isolated himself, the typical kind of over time situation. And we just didn't know at that time that cardiac events or cardiac health had a direct impact on performance. And looking back, now that I'm married to the Dick Doctor, I've learned a lot about what happened to me in my situation. And really, I was kind of angry to learn that it could be solved. And we didn't get the direction or the help to know what to do. And it ended up, you know, breaking our marriage apart.
This is common, do you think?
I sure do. After talking to all these women, holy cow. For 20 years, I've had women coming up to me telling me about their husband's performance or lack of performance because they're inquiring, you know, can you ask your husband, is this normal? Should my husband come and see your husband? What should we do? And turns out that it can be fixed. I've learned from the Dick Doctor, which I write a whole bunch about in my book over many different kinds of chapters. And it's just hard to talk about. Nobody wants to talk about it.
Well, it's like we don't want to think of our own parents as being sexual beings, right? You just don't. You also don't want to think about your own kids having sex,
Right. Right.
right?
That's right.
It,
That's the last thing you want to know about, right?
right.
It's
Don't tell
just
me, don't
not.
tell me, don't tell me, don't tell me. And so um, even in a one-to-one relationship, I guess guys just are guys. They don't want to talk about it. Most couples, the woman is in charge of health care. Okay, honey, you have to go to the eye doctor. Honey, it's time to get your heart checked out. You
Yeah.
have to go to the podiatrist. But they don't say, all right, it's time to go to the urologist, right?
No, they don't. They don't say it. A lot of people don't even know what a urologist does. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
So a lot of them will start with their family practice doctor. The problem with that is that the family practice doctor, in some instances, will try to solve it themselves, when in fact, most of the time, a urological condition has some underlying health condition. And so you need a board certified urologist or a board certified urogynecologist if you're a woman to really take a look through the urological lens to make sure that your plumbing is not having something go wrong with it because of some other condition. And I never knew that because, like, for me, I always thought my OBGYN could do everything. Turns out that most women have incontinence. And so we only go to the gynecologist. And a lot of times they'll try to fix the incontinence issue when in fact that should only and ever be done by a urologist or a urogynecologist. Because let's say that you have to have a urological procedure. That tissue in there is so fine and so delicate that you really get one chance to operate on it and gain 100% continence. If you let somebody who was never trained, like a gynecologist, to do a urology procedure, like a sling, right, which is a bladder lift, most of the time it will fail. I know because my husband, he corrects so many slings in women, and then they're never continent again because it's a redo.
One of the things that has always puzzled me about doctors here in California, where I am, if you're an MD, you can do brain surgery. You may not be board certified. You can do eye surgery. You can do it all because they
Same
don't.
here in Texas.
Same in Texas, and I think it's pretty much the same way throughout the country.
Yes.
I think that needs to be addressed and changed so that the specialists who have that training can actually do the work correctly the first time.
Well, that's right. For example, my husband's double board certified and fellowship trained.
And that
And
means
so,
men and women.
yes, he can do men and women. So he's called a female pelvic reconstructive urologist. Especially like if men get prostate cancer and they can't pee anymore, or bladder cancer, kidney cancer, you get shot, run over by a truck. He's the cleanup crew. He's the guy that can rebuild all your plumbing so that it works again. And he went to school for 15 years, college, university, medical school, fellowship, residency, 15 years to learn how to fix your plumbing. Where your family practice doctor, I think they go for 8 or 10. That's a big difference.
And they don't have a specialty. They're
No,
right.
right.
Let's take a look at a couple of things because men over the age of 40, and it is that young, where
Yeah.
erectile dysfunction problems, click in, if you will. and they can be caused by diabetes, heart conditions, as we mentioned, being overweight. If there's a real serious problem, there can be penile implants, and this is basically putting a balloon in the penis. You blow it up, and it's hard, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
it.
It's a fantastic device. I have a whole chapter on penile implants, and Boston Scientific was kind enough to give me carte blanche to all of the penile implant material that they have. And the reason I chose them is because my husband uses them the most, and they were incredibly supportive of this project. So I put pictures in there of how it works. And essentially you have a cylinder that goes in the penis, and then you have like a bladder or a reservoir full of water. And then you have a valve in the testicle that you pump 2 times, and it opens and the water drains down the bladder bag, if you will, and into the cylinder. And it creates an erection. Yep, it's a beautiful thing. And then to get them down, because that was my first question to the husband, I'm like, okay, so how do you get them down? And he's like, oh, it's very easy. You just squeeze the valve in the testicle and hold for 7 to 10 seconds. And I was thinking, ouch, but you're not pinching the testicle. You're pinching, the skin on top of the valve. They're very simple. That's one type. And then there's another type that's always hard, and it's just kind of malleable like Gumby. So you just push it down or push it up. And those are great for older people who maybe have Parkinson's or don't have dexterity with their hands, so they can't manipulate it. Or let's say you're one of our soldiers that were wounded in war and you don't have a lot of dexterity, but you're young and you still want to have an erection. So this is a device that can help people who have those kinds of physical impairments.
Any run on an Android or an iPhone yet?
Not yet, but I'm sure with time we're going to get Wi-Fi penises.
Just had to ask. I guess as you at one point you were helping your husband. You had several offices. He had several offices in the Texas area, in near McAllen, and you were rummaging around in his trunk, and you found a whole bunch of these things. That's hysterical.
Well, imagine my surprise. I was helping him to load up for work, get ready to go to one of our other offices in the town next door, because he works we're a small underserved community, so you spread yourself thin. So he would take things to each office. Well, I'm helping him with his gym bag and his coffee, and I open the trunk and I see 2 cases of Viagra and Cialis, which I'm like, oh my God, what are you doing with all these drugs? If you get pulled over, you're going to get a ticket. And he's like, no, quite the contrary. If I get pulled over, I'm going to have a new best friend. And I'm like, not if it's a woman cop.
And actually, even if it is a woman cop.
That's what he said.
Right? Exactly. And that's in the book, folks. I read it. The book is very funny. It has a lot of humor, but at the same time, you're coating the humor with really positive scientific information.
Oh, yes. My book was reviewed by my husband because he knew that all his peers were going to read it. And he wanted to make sure that it was technically correct. Of course, he's a surgeon. It has to be technically correct. So I do have a lot of information in there, but I'm like everybody else. I'm not a doctor. And yet I'm trying to understand what it is that he's saying, what it is that people at the grocery store are saying to me. And I have to somehow translate it so that it's easy to understand. So I put it in layman terms, but I'm a modest girl. I get very embarrassed by urology or my body parts. I don't want to talk about my body parts. So I think penis and vaginas are just funny, and that's the approach that I took.
Well, they are funny, but they can be more than just funny. And you say you're modest. How can you be modest when you're saying, instead of saying PP or VV, you're using the actual words, which is good, which is what we should do.
It's true, but I'm going to tell you what. I grew up in a family of 8 siblings, and 5 of them are boys. So maybe I'm not that modest for them, but for me, I don't want to talk about me. It's so much easier for me to talk about you.
Got it. Got it. And that makes perfect sense. What do you think is the strangest or the weirdest comment that you've had when, standing in line at Starbucks or at the gas station, and somebody comes over to you and says, my husband does this weird thing after we have sex, he does this, or what's the story? Come on.
Okay, there was one story that just had me floored because I didn't know that this happened. So I'm at the high school picking up my children from school, and you wait in the parking lot. You park, pull over, and wait. And I see this mommy who I don't know, but she's like looking this way and looking that way, and she's slowly making her way towards me. And I'm thinking, oh, this ought to be good. Because I can always tell when people are coming at me for a question, right? So she comes over, she's like, oh, hi, Mrs. Ruiz, how are you? And I'm like thinking, right, what's your question? She goes, can I ask you a question? I'm like, sure, what's up? She goes, well, this is really odd. She goes, my husband, when he gets an erection, his penis goes up and then bends almost backwards like a hook. And it's very painful for him. And I was like,
whoa,
what did you just say? And I'm like, you mean like a fish hook? It bends up and back like a fish hook? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, can I ask you a question? She's like, sure. I'm like, how do you get it in? She goes, well, I don't. That's the problem. That's why I wanted to ask you if you should get in to see your husband.
Well, it had to have worked. It had to have worked at least once because she was there picking up her kid.
Well, this is one of those underlying health conditions that shows up over time. And sure enough, it can be solved. It's a little bit more difficult, but it can be solved, takes a little time, and it's very painful. So it does affect your quality of life. And luckily, he had a good wife that was brave enough to bring up his, fish hook penis. But I'll tell you what, every time I see him in town, I have to turn the other way because I just picture this. I know. And I'm just like, I'm just going to go that way now because I can't get it out of my head now. It's there forever.
I get it. That makes perfect sense to me. The book is available at Amazon?
Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Google Play. I wrote the book in 14 languages. And I did audiobook in 8 languages. I did the English one myself. And the reason I did that is because I just want to help people learn that your urological problem can be solved. And I give my book away free in some of the non-Latin language countries because I just want to get the message out. I just want people to know about their plumbing.
Could a urological condition be life-threatening at any time that you're aware of?
Wow, that's a great question. I have to think about when the husband's been on call and what happens in the night. It's usually after the surgeries. It's not that the urological condition itself. The one that is kind of scary, and this is for all the moms and dads, it's called a tersion, Tersion, tersion. And it's essentially when your son's testicles, usually between like the ages of 14 to say 23, the testicle will turn, I guess, and it cuts off the blood supply. And it's very painful. And the kid should know he should go tell mom and dad, but they're so embarrassed. They hide it until the testicle's dead. The testicle dies in 24 hours. And so I would encourage parents to whisper in their son's ear, listen, if you ever have any kind of testicle pain, there's this thing called a tersion, and your testicle can die if you don't get into the hospital within 24 hours. They can save it if you get there in time, but if the blood supply is cut off longer than that, the testicle will die.
And as we wrap up our time together this time, and we'll have to have you back with some more tidbits on this. I personally think of sex as it's a gift from God.
Oh, yes.
But a lot of people, because of urological problems, both men and women, don't enjoy sex.
Yeah.
Isn't that a travesty?
Oh, I can't imagine life without sex. And it doesn't have to be the way it was when you were 20 or 30 or 40 or 50.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
But it's all good, right? It's all good. And you want to keep that going because it's good for your mental wellness, your physical health wellness, your emotional wellness. And it creates bonding in relationships. And when you start to lose sex, you start to lose interest in not just, your sex or your husband, but in life. It really can have a very large impact on you.
The book is really quite funny. A lot of personal anecdotes and stories. We'll have Madeline back as soon as I calm down, because this has been a titillating subject. I should have put a little warning at the beginning of our time together. But the name of the book, as you can see, is I Married a Dick Doctor. It's right there. Who fixes women too? A double board certified urologist, and his wife Madeline has made it a passion to help people basically with sex. So you're pushing sex, my dear.
I am pushing sex, and I'm pushing quality of life, and I'm pushing, life is short. Get on board, live life, get your urological problems solved so you can get back out there and do what we were meant to do in this life, which is to live and love and laugh.
Ooh, love and laugh. I like that. Maybe a little bit of sex too.
A lot of sex.
I thank you. A lot of sex? Ooh, that's even better. Right. So I've got to ask you, how many kids do you have?
I have 2.
You have 2.
Yeah.
Boys, girls, one of each?
One boy, one girl. They're teenagers.
Teenagers. You don't want to know about their...
I do know. We talk about it. We do talk about it. My mother was a nurse. My husband is a doctor. I come from a family of doctors. So we have very clinical discussions about when you start having sex, which we're not asking you to start having sex, but we're not stupid. Here's how you be smart about it. And here's how you treat a lady, or here's how you treat yourself. So we really do have those conversations. Good. And my kids are like, "Oh, Mom."
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't want to. Yeah. Exactly.
I will tell you though, my son handed out my book to all his high school buddies. I'm a very popular mom.
There's an abbreviation for that.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, we're not going to go there.
Oh, okay. I don't know that one, but you're going to have to clue me in when we're done.
Yeah, okay. I have to think of what it is. Anyway, Madeline, thank you very much. I Married a Dick Doctor. It's a great book. It's very, very funny. It's very frank, and you should pick it up. And go to Amazon or Barnes & Noble and get it. Now, you have a website as well.
I do. It's www.imarriedadickdoctor.com.
That's a very easy one to remember. All right. Thank you very much, Madeline. Thank you for watching. We will be back soon with more here on Late Night Health. Bye-bye for now.